has conveyed his condolences to the family of late veteran photographer Sam Nzima. In a statement, Ramaphosa described Nzima as one of a kind. Nzima died at in Nelspruit Hospital last night. The 83-year-old was best known for taking the famous photograph of Hector Peterson during the 1976 Soweto uprising.
An iconic picture which came to be known as the symbol of June 16 or Youth Day. The image was published in the World newspaper. And its capture, Sam Nzima was placed under house arrest. This morning, this sleepy village woke up to the news of Nzima's passing. He collapsed on Thursday and he was rushed to hospital. He passed away on Saturday night. The Youth League paying their respect in song and dance. And Lilysdale is still reeling in shock.
Mr. Sam Nzima has so humble to this community so much. For instance, he has built a school there. He's got a property there that he owns, and we're hoping for more.
He was one person who loved dancing. He loved a certain song, No Makunjani. Then when we were singing that song, he would dance.
Senior members of the ANC in Mpumalanga have visited Nzima's family.
The role that has been played by Ubabu Sam Nzima is not just a local role. He played a role for the entire South Africa. The picture that he took of Hector Peterson in June 1976 is a picture that is used internationally. That makes him to be an international icon, and he is more than a national icon. So his passing on cannot just be made a village matter. It's not, because the African National Congress is coming in, the government of Mpumalanga and of South Africa is coming in. We may be waiting for the Premier to pronounce as to what kind of respect are we going to give to Ubabu Nzima.
The family is yet to confirm funeral arrangements. Tumela Machogo, SABC News, Lilysdale, Mpumalanga.
We are now joined in studio by former journalist Dr Thami Mazwai to tell us more about veteran and renowned photojournalist Sam Nzima. A very good evening to you, Doctor. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
You knew him personally?
Yes, firstly, let me convey my sincere condolences to his family. I knew him personally, and we worked together for a very long time.
Take us through your fondest memories that you share with him.
Well, we had, I would say, a professional relationship. And between 77 and until about the 80s and until the advent of democracy, we traveled far and wide, covering stories. And in the 70s, it was basically the unrest, the national liberation struggle by the black people against the whole apartheid regime. So we covered the Steve Biko funeral. I think it was also at the Sobukwe funeral, if I'm not mistaken. And we were just all over the country covering events, rallies, and so on. And the one significant issue was that the camera was an extension of his body. It just automatically clicked at the right moment, and he would capture some of the best images that one can think of. And the importance of that was that the image then became living testimony of what I, the journalist, was writing about, because the police were very quick to deny their acts of brutality. But but when the images are there, the denials become very hollow. So the brutality of the time is legend, and he was exposed to that type of harassment like all of us. But he was very passionate about his job and about his profession. He was, if I would say that, very soft-spoken, with low laughter, and very humble. He was not the aggressive, gung-ho type of person. He was sort of reserved and very humble. But when it was a time for action, then the true Sam Nzima would come out.
With that being said, you know, specifically, as you mentioned, on a professional basis, how would you describe the legacy that Sam Nzima has left behind through pictures?
Well, I think that the pictures, he produced his works fairly recently. I've just forgotten when it was, his anthology. And I think that they are living testimony of what apartheid was to the indigenous people, and the fact that that he could record that history is very important for future generations. And the second thing was that without a passion for your job, you cannot achieve much. And he displayed the passion that was necessary for the profession that all of us are very proud of, because we as journalists of the time, including the likes of Zwelakhe, Sisulu, Joe Tlolwe, Matata Tsedu, and many others, we're exposed to the brutality of the system as we try to tell South Africa what was really happening. Now, he was, when I joined the world in 1972, then he was working for what was then, although we were one newspaper, but there were various departments, and then he was in Weekend World and worked with people like Philip Timkulu, Sophie Tema, and many others, Mutobi Mutwatse, and so on. And all of us, were just in one, in the newsroom with one determination to tell it as it is. And he was very passionate, and in terms of being an ethical person, there was nobody much more ethical than he was.
Yeah, definitely. And
yes.
You know, in terms of the work ethic that you shared with him, what sort of work ethic would you describe he had? I mean, with journalists, you're somewhat vocal about your experiences and what you've gone through, specifically in the apartheid era. Just take us through the voice behind some of the pictures as the man that you know as Sam.
Well, when I had occasion, when I went out with him on an assignment, we would basically obviously discuss the assignment that were going on. And at the time, it would be Sam, myself, and the driver, or Sam, myself, and another, or myself and another photographer. There were about 4 photographers at the time, and Sam was one of them. So we'd obviously discuss the assignment that were going on, and look at the issues that we need to focus on. And there needs to be a certain level of understanding between the photographer and the journalist, because you are looking at the same story, but from different directions. You, the journalist, must write, and he, the photographer, must capture the images. So we would then, do whatever we're supposed to do, and then go back to the newsroom. And of course, we would also have our conference, and to say, fine, these are the notes I have, and so on. And then, of course, he would produce the images, and it would guide me in writing the story, and so on. Because at times, when you are taking notes, you sometimes miss the action, because sometimes you have got to run away because the tear gas was something of a day-to-day basis, and he was exposed to the same tear gas, but he would still take the pictures and so on. And these were the photographers. Those photographers were something out of this world.
Definitely. We thank you very much for your time, Doctor, and sharing some of your memories, as well as work with Sam Nzima as we remember him this evening. Let's have a look now at some other news.